Good morning. Happy Monday. My laptop is doing that noise again. It just started like 5 seconds before I hit live. Hopefully, it's not too obnoxious. If it is, I can just switch to the headphone mic. Welcome. This is going to be morning coffee. Semi-open panel. I'm going to say a few words about commitment and some thoughts on community, and then I will put the link. But before that, let's check in on the news. Hurricane Beryl. Man, is that the same hurricane that's been going for, seems like a couple of weeks now? They're on B, so it's only the second one. But it will not stay out of the news. Something happened in France with all kind of, the left and the right in France are maneuvering. It's like a scramble in Survivor right before Tribal Council, except it seems like the Tribal Council happened. So I guess this is the aftermath. Other than that, no news that I see. If anybody knows of anything happening, let me know. I've been finding out all kind of things lately. Oh, wow. Hang on. So, yeah, we had talked earlier, a week or so ago, about getting a men's group together. And I have a little bit of experience doing that. I've been part of men's groups. I've helped to start men's groups. I'm kind of part of the Mankind Project, although I'm not very active right now. And I have this book. I have several books on men's groups, but I was looking through them, and this one is A Circle of Men. This was actually written by one of the guys that started the new warrior training that's part of the Mankind Project. So this is a very common, popular men's group manual. And chapter 2, if you can see it, it says commitment. The first chapter is like an introduction, and then the second chapter is, to me, the most important ingredient for forming any kind of group or community or anything really involving people. Workplaces need it. The employees have to show up at the time that they're needed to do the work, and you have to be able to rely on that every day to keep the business running, etc. So commitment and reliability is super important, and that's what I want to talk about today. But first, I want to, let's see, somewhere in here there is oh yeah, so there's this guy called M. Scott Peck. Some of you may have heard of him, and he did a lot of writings and studying about community. And so a lot of his thoughts and ideas show up in community building, and this chapter draws on him. So this is a quote from one of his books. He says, "There is more than a quantum leap between an ordinary group and a community. They are entirely different phenomena." I can't stress that enough. And what I am attempting to do here, and what I try to do everywhere I go, just because it's my instinct, I can't help it. Me and Ren talked the other day about the Enneagram and being a connector. There's like 3, is it subtypes? Something they call them. Self-preservation, social, and what they call sexual or intimate or connectors, and I'm that type. And so everywhere I go, I'm trying to create community constantly. In fact, I want to review that Northrop Frye quote that I like so much, that I used to post. This is kind of my starting assumption for community. If I'm going to be part of community or try to build community, etc. Hang on one second. Actually, I can't show it. I will just read it. This is from Northrop Frye. He says, "Genuine speech is the expression of a genuine personality. And we've talked about that personality map and the authentic personality ideal, etc. So that's kind of the core for me of what a genuine personality is. It's the highest, best part of yourself that you're aspiring to, trying to reach, become more aware of, and become. Because it takes pains to make itself intelligible, it assumes that the hearer is a genuine personality too. So it's one genuine personality, authentic personality, attempting to communicate with what it assumes to be another authentic, genuine personality. And I very much do take pains to attempt to make myself intelligible. So when I'm talking, I'm assuming there's somebody on the end similar to me that's taking me in good faith, that is wanting to hear what I'm having to say, and I'm wanting to hear what they having to say, because we're both wanting to get to know another genuine personality. And he says, in other words, wherever it is spoken, it creates a community. So whenever this dynamic he's talking about is being transacted, if that's even the word, because to me it's something more than just the transactional. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Martin Buber, but he has the concept of the I thou. Like an objective relationship to the world would be one of I it. It's you and some object or person seen as an object, a transactional or utilitarian unit. And the alternative to that he calls the thou, where when it's another being. I mean, I guess it could be an animal or a landscape or something, but let's just go with human for now. It's not an it relationship. It's what he calls a thou relationship. It's seeing the other person as a being similar to yourself, and not just part of the objective universe. And so to me, you have to have that. You have to have two authentic people, or two people attempting to become authentic and discover who they really are, etc., and wanting to communicate that with each other. And so it makes sense to me that he would there's a difference between just a group and a community. A community is something, it's like the next, you're taking the group and you're doing something with it, or the members of the group are doing something with it that's taking it to another category outside of just a group. And none of that happens without this thing called commitment. So I'm just going to, the very first sentence from this chapter, without commitment, the group doesn't work. Support groups are totally voluntary, and if the men don't come to the group, it does not exist. Commitment ensures the longevity necessary to build the trust and the safety essential to open up, risk, and share more of who they are, etc. So in the men's groups, they talk about creating a container, and I'm still not sure what that is because it's very abstract, but I suspect that part of it is just creating. When I did the COVID Zoom during COVID, we had a little support kind of drop in. Everybody was isolated. It was a place for people to come and hang out and connect, get support, mental health support, emotional, social support, etc. The way that started was I committed every day. I think it was 6:30 in the morning, maybe it was 6. We were going to start with coffee, morning coffee. And so I made the commitment to show up every day and open up this Zoom at 6 o'clock, no matter what. And there were many days that nobody showed up. I sat there, I drank my coffee for half an hour, and I tried again the next day. And after about a week or so, this other peer started to show up, and she agreed. She made a commitment as well to show up with me every morning. And she would post it on her social media. I would post it on mine. And for like probably less than a week, it was me and her every day. And so we would meet, we'd open up the room, we would just talk, check in, got to know each other. And then a third person started showing up, and a fourth. And eventually we had enough people that saw the value in this that they also committed to like taking a certain shift or a certain time slot. And eventually we built up to enough volunteers where we could more or less keep the thing going, sometimes 24 hours a day, and if we needed to, definitely 24 hours a day. We had the volunteer power to do it, and we kept it going for well over 6 months, 7, 8 months, until things started opening back up after lockdown. And that's kind of what we lost the numbers at that point, because because it was no longer needed. People could go get that in real life, which is what they were looking for. So the point is, without that initial commitment on behalf of the people involved, none of that would have happened. Commitment happens to be one of my superpowers. I don't understand people that struggle with it or why it's so hard. I've never had a problem showing up on time, being where I need to be, being where I'm expected. I've showed up on this channel every day. When Chris and I did it, before Chris, I had committed to doing an hour of streaming a day to grow the channel. And my first month or two of streams is exactly that. It's me showing up every day. Someday, in Mental Health Month, I committed to doing one topic a day for 31 days, and I did exactly that last year. And I had guests on for some of the topics, etc. And then when Chris and I started collaborating, I have to say, Chris was somebody else who was really good at commitment. And that's one of the things that helped to grow this stream, is every day Chris and I were showing up at the same time that we agreed to and keeping the stream going. And because of our ability to do that consistently, that allowed a stable kind of point of contact for the viewers and the audience and the panelists and the members to start showing up. So that created something for community to kind of grow around. So right now, this is fine. Like a third space, it doesn't take more than me committing to keeping it open. And maybe we have our regulars that show up, etc. And I've talked about third space before and the ingredients necessary for that. So commitment kind of can build on that third space and create something a little more targeted and focused, and allow the people that want it to take that third, like whatever connections they're making from the third space to the next level. And so this guy recommends a minimum of 6 weeks and a maximum of 6 months, or a check-in at 6 months. So if I could get, I think four would be a good minute, 4 to 6, but I could start with 4. I could do something with 4 men that can commit for, you know what, let's make it 2 months. That covers the 6 weeks. We check in at 2 months. So if they can commit to once a week for 2 months, 3 other people, we could start one of these second groups that we talked about. We talked about starting 2, one that's off stream, that's private and confidential, and then another one for people that want to volunteer for it, that we do on stream. Maybe once a week we stream it, and so that other people could see what a men's group looks like, and they can adapt it to whatever their identities are. It doesn't have to be men. So back to this Scott Peck guy, he continues. He says, community is a safe place, or in our case, an unsafe place, precisely because no one is attempting to heal or convert you, to fix you, to change you. Instead, the members accept you as you are. We have this concept in the peer community of meeting people where they are. So wherever you start from, if you've made it into that group, and you have the commitment to help create the group and keep it going, then we take you on your own terms at whatever starting point that you're at. And in fact, I'll go back to it in a second. I show that chart with the levels of self-determination. You are free to be you. And being free, you are free to discard defenses, masks, disguises, free to seek your own psychological and spiritual health. So it kind of creates a different type of space than the third space, or maybe a secondary, maybe a fourth space, we could call it. And A fourth space has a little different purpose, different structure, and meets different needs than this third space. And so I guess it's this fourth space that I'm trying to create next. He does talk about, I guess I'll go ahead and read it since it's here. Conflict. And Scott Peck is of the mind, and I agree with him, that conflict is actually necessary to take communities to the next level of growth. And that without some kind of conflict, you end up with what he calls a quasi community and not a genuine, authentic community. His definition of conflict, he says, is simply you want one thing and I want another. Or perhaps you had one set of expectations and I had another. Or you have one value and I have another. So he says conflict is a natural and important part of any relationship, and the successful resolution of conflict will involve you and me telling the often hidden truth about why we want whatever it is we happen to want. In this open sharing, we come to know new aspects of each other. What is generally missing for us in our society is the space, the community that supports our telling the truth at deeper levels. And I have tried to do some of that here. I think many of us have, and other panels. Your group is that opportunity. It is imperative that your group welcome conflict and trust that you will know how to deal with it. Okay, Scott Peck again. The essential dynamic of pseudo community is conflict avoidance. These people that try to police and shut down conflict because they think it's going to threaten the group. It may threaten their group, their panel, whatever they're trying to create, but it's not going to threaten true community if that's what's happening. True community is conflict resolving. It is through the successful resolution of conflict that we build intimacy. And I've done several streams on conflict management, conflict resolution, etc. So that is this guy's thoughts on community and commitment, and Scott Peck, and my own thoughts on I tried to do a men's group a year or so ago. This is when I was MGTOW, and I had cut all women out of my life completely, and my mental health was much improved. And I found this group of men, and I kind of teamed up with this. He was an actual therapist or counselor, and he did men's work, and he had just put out a book. And we were going to try to do a men's group, and we were meeting by Zoom a couple of times a week, kind of third space, kind of casual, getting to know each other, opening up, sharing. And I was trying to take it to this next level, to this fourth space, which was the original intention when we came together to form this group. I'm always trying to hit the gas, or it seems like I'm always trying to hit the gas too quickly for the people around me, when I think that they're there specifically because they're ready to hit the gas. And that's why we all came together in the first place. So there's always this confusion with me and social groups. And so as I started to do that, the group started to kind of react. And so I brought in this chapter on commitment to try to show them what I was trying to do. And oh my God, did it not go well. They had a very negative reaction. There was a lot of resistance. Some of them felt like I was telling them that they were not reliable or lazy or something. And that was not the message at all. It was like, look, this is what we're going to need if we're going to make this work. And I thought we had all agreed this is what we were trying to make work. And me and the organizer ended up, so I gave him this passage. I'm like, look, can you at least read this thing on commitment? And he flat out refused. He's like, I'm going to tell you right now, I will never read that paragraph you just sent me. And I'm thinking, okay, we're not on the same page at all. And I don't know what's going on here. And so I just backed out of the project, and it never happened. But it was a weird experience trying to introduce this concept of commitment to a group of guys when it comes out of a book to help guys form these kind of groups. So this is my attempt to try again. We'll see what happens. I'm going to put the link, and we'll do a quasi open panel. It'll be some kind of panel. It's not wide open like the barn doors where all the cows can come in. There is it's like the velvet rope, I guess. at the club. Like, do you make the cut? Are you wearing the right thing? Are you with the right person? Will the doorman let you in? I guess it is gatekeeping, but when I'm doing the gatekeeping, I don't have a problem with it because I trust myself to gatekeep. But I don't trust other people to gatekeep me because they always gatekeep weird little things that have nothing to do with, like, body movements, speech patterns, etc., or vibes. All right, there is the link. Come on up. I'll leave it open for, I don't know, half an hour or so. Did I check? Yeah, I checked the news. There was nothing. All right. I had a video, and I'll be darned if I forgot what it was. I think it was one of my videos, and it was something I could show during intermissions. Oh, also, I wanted to show this chart again. Hang on. Let me see if I can find it. Well, why won't it open? Oh, here we go. Oh. Why won't it zoom? All right, let me see what's going on here. I think my laptop is starting to be on the way out. It's running slower. It's making more noises. Ah, yeah, here's the one. This is a slightly different chart. This is the one on community. Remember, there were 3 of these charts. One shows the individual levels of self-determination with the red and green arrows moving up or down. One shows the program level, like a specific agency or program. And then this shows like the community level in general. And this is as high as I could zoom it. But if you look at this number 5 box, well, let's look at number 4 too. This is a community after it's empowered its members enough for the entire community to have crossed this threshold of independence and begin this zone of transformation and begin this upward journey into self-determination as a community. So the community itself can change direction. If enough programs foster empowerment, the shared foundation will improve and the entire community will gain upward mobility. And then as it gains that mobility, number 5 says high-level individuals, groups, and communities. And that's what I'm trying to build, a high-level community. Build deeper wealth based on self-determination, creating resources and strategies to empower people more difficult to help. These are people at the lower level. Over time, communities produce people more capable of helping those further and further below the zone. So this goes back to the principle of as you help yourself, you're more able to help other people. So the idea is to find enough people, and like I said, 4, 5, 6 to start. Let's go with 4 to create at least one of these programs and get this upward mobility. And this wealth could be any kind of wealth. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetary wealth. It could be social wealth. It could be numbers, community, out, like reach, whatever. Build enough of that to where as we grow and develop, we gain the ability to start to help more and more people down here. Because right now, I'm really working with people that are in this zone of transformation. I'm not really motivated, prepared, or equipped to start helping the levels down here. But as this happens, I think the potential to reach more down here will happen. So that's the theory behind everything I'm doing right now and why I'm sharing any of this. So that is what I have today. Let me see who's streaming. Rachel's Ghost, Positivity, and those darn commies. Is she a safe stream to, you know? Oh, they're not talking about anything really interesting now. They're just like sharing channels. That's the only person on my list that's streaming right now. And Mel Pandora just ended hers. So let me look at Twitter. No. I've been continuing those. There's several YouTube series on the American Revolution. History Channel had one. PBS. They're Ken Burns, the guy that did the Civil War, is releasing one next year, I think. What's that other? Let me find it. The one I'm watching now. It's 13-part series. Anyway, as I'm watching it, I'm kind of reading the documents too. Common Sense, the Declaration, and so much of what we talk about today is straight out of the writings of the period that America was even founded. There's definitely a unity, a cultural unity, a historical unity, a thematic unity between then and now. I think we're still a nation. I think there is still an underlying story that ties all of us together. Kind of like J6. The events are not in dispute. It's how we categorize and interpret them that are. And I think we have our American story. Everyone just has different ways of how they see it. And I'm not going to lie, I'm trying to find that series. The woke, they kind of do have a little bit of a point in the sense that the original people, it was heavily slanted toward male property owners. I don't know about Caucasian in general, but definitely British, European, that kind of stuff. But again, that's like way back. We haven't been that way for centuries. We've corrected and expanded that. So I don't know why they have to keep going back to history to get their analogies for today. Other than I do the same thing, they're just not very precise about their analogies, I guess. Like, I don't think today, in some ways, it's like 1776, and in some ways, it's not. And one of those ways is the diversity and racial makeup. In some ways, we're like the Civil War still. It's in many, many ways we're not. And one of those many ways is the racial tensions and hostilities. I'm trying to find this documentary. Oh yeah, it's called. No, is it Liberty? It's called The Revolution from 2006. It's another History Channel one. So that's what I've been watching. I'll probably do that in Discord today. I think the promise of America is still there. And for those of you that are black pilled, I noticed many of you have very unrealistic expectations of America in the first place. Like, there's people that want to be able to leave class, whatever they want, without ever having to tell a teacher or ask for a hall pass or anything. There's people that want to drive without licenses and license plates. That's not a realistic expectation of America to begin with. So if that's what got disappointed, I don't know who misled you to even think that that was reasonable. Hey, Christian, good to see you too. But those of us who did grow up with Schoolhouse Rock and do have relatively reasonable expectations of the country, if the promise of America did not pan out for you, did not yield what you had hoped, I'm interested in why. And I'd be willing to, like, I bet if I took a look at your circumstances, I could pinpoint little ways that you yourself could have made the outcome differently, or still can get the dream somehow by trying, like, finding new options and trying these strategies, etc. So I haven't given up on the American dream, and if you have, I question that, and I wonder if you're not giving up too soon. And the American dream, just broadly, as I understand it from watching these documentaries, is that if you can dream it, if you can envision it, America allows you the opportunity to enact it. Like, you're only limited by your own creativity and ingenuity. And I think that's pretty amazing too. Like, there's probably other countries you can do that. I had a friend that lived in France for a while. He was in clothing, and I think he tried to start a business there, or maybe he did start a business or something. And he said that we don't know how easy we have it here in America. Try to start a business, like the hoops you have to jump through in France and the requirements. They just sounded ridiculous to me. And so I guess America is, maybe they are better about that than some other places. I know when I started mine, it wasn't that. Considering my like low tolerance for bureaucracy and high frustration threshold for it, I didn't find the bureaucracy that burdensome. There was a federal thing or two I had to file. There was a couple of state things I had to file, and they have it all on websites now, so it's automated, it's easy. You don't have to talk to a person, you don't have to wait for stuff in the mail, etc. And then there was a city, county, and the city is centralized all through one website. So whatever you have to do at the city, it's all in one place, and they send you little notices and reminders. And then they have the county is the one that taxes your property. So every laptop, microphone, everything I use in my business, I have to put on a list, and then they assess it, and they charge a certain percent of the physical property involved in the business every year. So I'm continuing to have to pay tax on the laptop as long as it's a business, as long as it's used in business. And then the state and the federal, I don't know, they get annual fees and taxes or something, but all of that is not that. I didn't find it that overwhelming for the advantage that I get for now having the ability to transact business and generate my own income. It was definitely well worth it. So yeah, I think the American dream is still out there. I haven't given up on the promise of America. I think telling young kids that America is doomed, or think how bad things are, or that they can't succeed or achieve because they're this or that identity. What is your agenda with these kids? Why would you tell them that? Instead of try to empower them, like, find their strengths regardless of what's going on in the world. They're still going to have strengths, and empower them. Focus on the things they can do and that they're good at, and give them something positive to take into the future. My problem growing up is not so much that I didn't get that. I got that kind of stuff. the future they prepared me for, that was created and they pointed me for, doesn't exist. It didn't even exist by the time I got to college. I don't even think it existed. So I was perfectly prepared for a world that didn't no longer existed by the time I was like, it was time to enter into it. Now, I don't think they're even getting what's happened at the Erickson stages, especially 4 and 5, because that's where I got stuck too, but for different reasons. I don't even think they're getting the empowerment that they need to be successful. Like, I think you need like Swiss Army knife strategy. We don't know what the future. It's the future is changing too quickly. We don't know what future to prepare kids for. So you need to give them as many tools as you possibly can. You need to give them a whole Swiss Army knife of tools and empower them with skill and versatility so that they can adapt to whatever the future is and not to be too rigid or dogmatic about it. We're in a very kind of chaotic transitional period right now. And I think you prepare differently for those periods than you do for times that were more stable like mine. And they assume that stability would continue. Because pretty much post World War II through the 70s, even the 80s, it was kind of that time of middle class prosperity. So there were several generations that could kind of predict their future off of that. And then that broke down somewhere. Really, I think with the internet, there was a big shift that we had to readjust to. And maybe that there's also, along with the internet, and maybe it was related, maybe not, there was a shift toward more safetyism and different parenting style. And so I guess Generation X, growing up as wild and free and risky and dangerous as we did, maybe they're like, oh, I don't want that for my kids. I need to be super careful because I know all the dangerous stuff that I did. And so maybe it was like this reaction in parenting. But growing up as digital natives where your life is structured and protected is very different than growing up in nature where your life is kind of free and spontaneous and there's some risk to it that everybody just was willing to assume and take for granted. Plus, another feature is we worked out our conflicts on our own. We didn't need adult supervision and there was nobody to run to all the time. In fact, if you did run to an adult with some kind of childish fight, they would probably tell you to go work it out among yourselves. Like, don't involve them, y'all figure it out. And now there's entire departments in colleges that people or even workplaces that people can go to when their feelings get hurt. All right, what time is it? I don't have anything else to say really, but I'm also not in a rush to end it. Let me see if there's anything else in this book I can share. There's also this other book, the Men's Group Manual, similar stuff. And this guy has a website online, so a lot of this material is available for free. What is a men's group? Shaping an intentional community, common intellectual interests, common activity interests. You have to have some shared, something that keeps you together that you can build a vision on. Optional commonalities, faith, shared past crises or traumas, age or generation, political views. These are all options. Although I kind of like a mix. So I don't like all my groups to be exactly the same. I especially like a mix of neurodivergent and neurotypical because I think we can learn and balance each other out. And I also think lately gay and straight because I think straight men have a lot to learn from gay men right now because we have a lot of experience organizing other men in the face of political hostility and threats to our freedoms. And I think men are in that situation right now. And so gay people can help men come together politically. Ethnicity, and then, oh, let's take a look at this. It says, do you really need commonalities? But listen to what he said. If you're thinking, but I want a really diverse group, which is exactly what I was thinking, and have come to the conclusion that you don't care what the group's interest profile is, that is not, then please do you really think a group man made up of Ku Klux Klan member, a gay Jewish man, a fundamentalist African American, a right-wing philosophy professor, a guy who only watches sports, a guy who never read a book in his life, a Dungeons and Dragons enthusiast, a left-wing soap opera fan, a PETA member, and a French chef would be a group where every man felt safe, open, and valued? Interesting, because this sounds like the panel verse. I see panels with this kind of mix on it all the time, and I think it makes for an exciting like it's that creative tension. Oh, and he continues, such a group, I will admit, would be an exciting forum for debate. Wow, this guy's good. But it does not have a solid foundation for building an intentional community of men that are bonded. Interesting. Why dramatically increase your chance of failure? Find at least one commonality to build on, and it might work. So one commonality in addition to being men, like men plus something else, I can go with that. I think it's men that seek empowerment and are at that zone of transformation and looking to cross over it into that higher level. I think that, to me, is a commonality enough. That's a specific type of man, the hero's journey type, the men that are on the hero's journey. A total lack of commonality will make it difficult for your group to bond. The more similar in terms of values and worldview, the easier it will be to bond. Think the character of your group through and decide what you would like it to be and be forthright. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. And I've come up with two main things for sure, and it's kind of the two main things that have always shown up. But first is the intellectualism. It's going to have to be a group for intelligent men, or men that value intelligence and don't react against it, stigmatize it, nerd, that kind of stuff. And then men, male values, psychologically male, and for me, actually male. At least those two things. And then I guess a third, which to me goes along with the intellectual stuff, it has to tolerate emotions. Like, men have strong emotions, and that has to be okay. I can't stand seeing men police other men's emotions. Women do it enough. Why are men doing it? Are they doing it on behalf of the women? Or is the emotions bothering the men themselves? Come up and tell me, please. Mid-bro, if you're out there, this is a perfect opportunity for your insight. Then there's things like logistics, how many people. And then so what these books do, they like structure the first 8 meetings or so, and they give you like a little template to run through. And then by that time, you've got enough practice and you got a feel for it and enough skill down that you could take it from there. Why am I so gay for men? Because I'm not gay for women, I guess. Why are you gay for women? That's just what's always caught my eye. And women have not. So I grew up with women. I am so, maybe that's why some people think I'm a woman. I am so overly familiar with women. They're not mysterious. They're not enigmatic. There's nothing mystical or special about them. They are just, I just see them for what, like we have that like romantic versus realistic perspective. Women are very hard for me to romanticize in any kind of way because I've seen all the inner workings from a very early age. And men still have this, it's almost a spiritual quality to it. Like here's what I'm going to say. We talk about female energy, male energy, etc. So masculinity, femininity as archetypes, as energy, throughout human history, they've been revered as spiritual forces, etc. So just because I find mine in masculinity does not mean I'm devaluing femininity and those that find it in femininity. I just don't. Femininity doesn't have that same pull for me that masculinity does, which means probably for me, that's not where my path lies. My path probably lies toward the masculine, like the sacred masculine, some call it, or the deep masculine. And I do believe there's something like a sacred feminine or a deep feminine. I think feminism, what we see today, is not a reflection of it. I think a reflection of truly sacred feminine would be much more spiritual and much more resonant with humanity in general, and not so abrasive and alienating. And same for the sacred masculine. I honestly don't know. I don't even know how much testosterone I have. I know I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of stamina. Um, but when I was living in Vegas, like, I don't know, a couple of decades ago, I had a doctor. It was the pharmaceutical reps. They were in his office, and they were paying him to do the testo gel or something, androgel. And so every patient that went in that was male, he would test their testosterone, and then he would prescribe that. He would give samples of this gel and then try to prescribe it. And I know it was coming from the reps. I just know this was Vegas. That's how Vegas works. And so I tried some of the gel, and it felt like a heart attack, like the biggest panic attack. And I never tried it again. It was too much. Whatever that was in that, it was too much of a dose at once. But he said I had low testosterone, but I think it was just to sell this stuff. I don't know what my levels are. I've had it checked a few times as part of the panels. I've gone to male doctors, man doctors, and nothing was out of the ordinary. So I guess I'm normal. Usually when they check me medically, I'm almost always like right in the middle of all of the reference ranges, almost every time. And no matter what's wrong with me, they can never find anything by testing my blood or my serums or anything, because I'm so middle of the curve physiologically every time. My mom was a med tech, and she was constantly testing. Like, she could test our blood, just whatever she needed to. And so I've had my blood tested my whole life, and every single time it comes out normal. Like, it just amazes me how normal my blood is. And so testosterone, I think, was the same way. Every time they test me, it's like right in the middle. And I don't stay aroused. I have to like make it happen. I have to, like, that's why porn is so useful to me. If I want to get into that state, I need to actively get myself into that state. I'm just not naturally always. Maybe when I was younger, a little bit, maybe. But I'm more demisexual. I have to get to know a person. That psychological connection has to be there. Like, there's a lot of work and investment, but the payoff is better too for me. I was never good at the casual stuff at all. It was awkward. I didn't know the person. I couldn't. It's just so much better when you know the person, and you can read all the little nuances. Yeah, I'm not a casual person. I mean, it's there when you need it, but it's not my preference for sure. I like things that can build, that, like, communities, individuals. I like seeing growth and, like, how something starts and how it progresses. So having a partner that gives you the opportunity to do that, you can start and you can build together and deepen the experience, etc. Maybe the level. Yeah, I kind of agree too, that the attraction is one thing, like preference and taste. And then the personality expression is a completely different axis. And they talk about exploratory therapy for like kids nowadays. And when I was in high school, I was hospitalized for a few weeks at like a private hospital for I guess for troubled kids. And because I was. And they had me see a therapist, and they did some of that exploratory therapy because the gay stuff was coming out. That was one of the factors that was contributing, or they wanted to at least make sure that it like rule out how much it was contributing to all the whatever I was going through. And so I remember talking to this lady for several sessions, and we talked about it was to figure out if the attraction was because of trans or because of gay. And I was about 16. I think I just turned 16. And nowadays, I think that with all the different options, I think that's good for every kid that realizes that they're different. They're either gender nonconforming, they have some kind of alternative sexuality or non-traditional sexuality. Nowadays, I think, and when I was doing it, that was back in the 80s, and they were exploring, well, let's look as do you feel like you're a woman? Do you feel like this is trans? Are you okay being a guy? Do you feel like this is just gay? Because it can look the same. Like you could be attracted to a guy because internally you're mostly female, however that happens. Or you can be attracted to a guy because you're a guy and they're another guy, and you like the same thing similar to you, which is homosexuality. And I was pretty sure with me it was homosexuality, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. I've never had an issue being a guy. I prefer it, and I've never felt alienated from my body. I've always felt comfortable as a guy, and so I never had any gender issues. But I'm not a traditional guy either. Like I was not. I was like Peter Brady in the Brady Bunch. My voice never broke. Like all the other guys got the deep voices. I got the facial hair. I got the puberty. I got everything else, but I did not get the voice. And to this day, I do not have the voice. I don't even know if I could fake it. I feel phony, like a radio voice. See, it's not me. It's not genuine and authentic. Um, so I wouldn't say I was traditionally masculine, and I did get not teased, but questioned by some of the guys as to what my gender might be. And they had to take me out of PE class too, because I'd get harassed a lot in the locker rooms and playing dodgeball. And so I would sit in the coach's office and help him do his grade books or fill out paperwork or something. He had this busy work that I got to do instead of the PE stuff. So there was something around gender there that I was vaguely aware was a problem for people, but nobody sat me down and explained it to me. So, and I talked about epigender yesterday in relation to autism and neurodivergence, which is another concept that kind of makes sense to me. Oh, does it? It runs the gamut. I've been told I sound womanly. I've been called, my nickname in one of the groups I was in was the one with the voice, which I have no idea what that means. And but that's how they identified me. And I do get a lot of criticism about my voice, but then my last boss, I did a lot. We do a lot of speaking as part of my job. She told me that I had the best voice of anybody that works for her, and that she tries to use me every chance she gets when she needs someone to speak, etc. I was shocked. Absolutely shocked. And growing up in like the 5th and 6th grade when I was in 4-H, we would have annual competitions. I won ribbons for public speaking. I have 4-H ribbons where they actually gave me an award because they said I spoke better than the other people that were speaking in that contest. So I don't know. Your mileage varies with the voice thing. And then my ex, who was ugly and hateful, this is interesting because he was upper middle class. He worked for Microsoft, like tech, good money, that kind of like model member of society. And he had all these ugly little hateful nicknames for his exes. When he'd break up with them, when he'd tell the next person about him, he always called them ugly little names. And so I asked him one day, I said, do you have, this is when things were tense and I could tell the relationship was not going to work out. I said, do you have your nickname for me picked out for when we break up? And he said, yeah. He said, you're going to be called Swamp Rat. And you're going to talk like this. And then he started making fun of the way I talked. And I realized the whole time he was dating me, that was in the back of his mind, and that had bothered him. And that was one of the things he was reacting to. And I was on a date with another guy a few years later who was also kind of the same bracket, middle class, worked for a tech company, real polished, and the kind of high status person that society would look up to. And he used the same term. He said, we were on a date. This was on an actual date, like a dinner at a restaurant. And I was telling him about my experiences in Seattle. And he's like, he was kind of summarizing it. And he's like, yeah, I can understand that. And like, these people have a certain way of doing things up here. And then this Swamp Rat from Louisiana shows up. And I'm thinking, this is the second person that's called me Swamp Rat that's from this kind of middle upper class fancy culture. Is there something about me swampy that's coming up as swampy to where is this swamp coming from, and what's with the rat thing? And then I was reading one of my Cajun history books one time, and they were going through like some of the reactions that Anglo-Americans had to Cajuns back in the 18 and 1900, like early 1900s. And one of the insults for Cajuns that kept coming up over and over was swamp rat. That's what these white people were calling my people down in Louisiana when they encountered them for the first time. And this was pre-technology, so we were still living with candlelight and outhouses and all that kind of stuff. Swamp rat was one of the names, and it was the same cultural kind of matrix that these people in Seattle came from, the Anglo-Saxon upper middle classy. So there's something, I don't know. It's a pejorative for Cajuns and coon-ass. I'm a coon-ass. That's what I am. And but when you take a coon-ass like me, and you, because I always thought intellectually we're the same class. My family, like we're more or less middle class. Like we grew up poor, but we weren't what I call white trash by any stretch. And so historically, the people that I've always affiliated with as an adult have been the working class professionals, white collar teachers, lawyers, people in the medical profession. That has been tech people, galore of tech people. That's been my class. So when I move up here, I think that these people are the same. Like they've never had an issue with me before, but the people up here in the same social class, for some reason, are reacting to this swamp thing about. How do we get on this topic? I don't remember. Coon-ass, absolutely. Proud coon-ass. In fact, I used to have a T-shirt that said "Registered Coon-ass," and it had the little raccoon butt. And if you go on Amazon and Google coon-ass, there's all kind of merchandise you could buy, like showing your coon-ass pride. It's a real thing where I come from. Coon-ass is kind of the fancy upper-class Cajuns that are trying to assimilate to white society look down on the word coon-ass, and they have like, oh my God, it's offensive and all that. And then the Cajuns like me that are more working class and proud of our working class roots have adopted it as like a badge of pride and honor. So the fancy Cajuns don't want us to use it because they feel like it reflects badly on them. And they're like the woke. This is like our version of woke, the woke word. And so the fancy progressive liberal Cajuns try to get everybody to not use it and feel shame and guilt over using it. And then the people like me that are more closer to the dirt use it as a badge of pride and kind of to thumb our nose at the fancy upper class. Like, we all come from the same roots. Y'all are being pretentious. And if there's one thing Cajuns hate, it's pretension and authoritarianism. That's the other thing. Don't try to tell us what to do, and don't try to act like you're better than everybody else, because we know you're not. We all put our drawers on one day at a time like everybody else. And so watching Cajuns in particular try to be what black people call sedity uh, is kind of laughable and amusing to us. So we call ourselves coon-ass to distinguish ourselves from that. Wow. You've been called a Jew and a racist and a homo and a homophobe. Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, I have too. Because of the wokeness. I've been called a white supremacist. I was talking to some woke girl and tried to explain the Cajun history to her because we were the first ethnic cleansing in North America of Europeans by Europeans. We have a whole history of historical oppression at the hands of the same people that they're complaining about. So you think we'd be a natural ally. Oh, look, another group that was oppressed by whitey. But then when I tell the story, they're like, nope, you're part of the white. They said I was white passing and that I still count as whiteness. And my historical oppression does not absolve me of that. And as an autistic person, I'm still a male, so that still counts against me. And as a gay person, I'm what's called a cis gay or cis het gay or something. And I'm part of the patriarchy. Like once we got marriage, we became assimilated to the patriarchy at that point, and we became the enemy. And they didn't tell us this at all when we were fighting for marriage. But the minute we got marriage, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you're now patriarchy. And then they turn on us, all the male gays. So every group I'm in, I get called the slur version and then the oppressor version also at the same time. So just like the Jews, we're victims and we're oppressors somehow. None of it's it's like trying to find logic where there's no logic. Yeah, the Brits, the Anglos, we call them les Américains. That's our name for them, the Americans, and it's an insult. It's not a good thing to be les Américains. That's like the managerial elites of today. That's how we see the Americans. But they brought the jobs. When the oil companies came in, that is what that gave Cajuns a social mobility that they've never seen since. That was like our version of Microsoft and Amazon and the tech companies. That was the 6-figure salaries, etc. That was all brought in by the Anglos. The technology, the running water, the educational system, even though they tried to force us from not speaking French. That's why I'm so sensitive today to being told how to talk. If you are Anglo-Saxon American, don't tell a Cajun how to talk. There's all kind of historical trauma around it. Y'all tried that shit before with us, and we almost lost our language and our culture. Don't do that with us, and don't do it with a Satanist. Hey, Neutral Ground, what's up? It's an open panel, by the way, if anybody wants to talk. Otherwise, I will. Oh, wow. I'm already over an hour. Okay. Well, I'll wrap it up if there's no panel. I'm sure you don't want to hear me all day long. Let's see. Oh, Neutral Ground. Are you from Louisiana? There's two meanings of neutral ground, and I'm going to tell you both of them. Historically, Louisiana was like part of Spain. And when the Cajuns settled, it was actually Spanish. It wasn't French. And then they gave it to France, and eventually the U.S. got it, etc. Well, when the U.S. acquired it, there was still a boundary dispute. I think it was between Spain and the U.S., like because of Texas. And so there's a part of Texas between the boundary of Texas and Louisiana. For many years, while it was under dispute, it was a no man's land. It was an authentic no man's land where each nation agreed to kind of both claim it and neither claim it while they sorted it out. And so it became this area where it was kind of lawless, and there were all these outlaws, and all the crooks and criminals started to find their way there. And Jean Lafitte, the pirate, his men camped out there. Well, lo and behold, that's not the exact part of Louisiana I was born in. I was born in that neutral land, that no man's land. And that's sometimes called the neutral ground. But then in New Orleans, They have the big wide streets, and in the middle of the streets, they have these medians, these grassy medians. Sometimes they have trees on them. And in a normal city, that would be called a median. In New Orleans, that's called the neutral ground. And so the parades, you can go stand on the neutral ground and watch the parades. Or anytime you're in New Orleans and you hear someone talk about neutral ground, they're talking about those big grassy medians in the middle of the big wide streets. So there's two meanings of neutral ground in Louisiana. So I like your name. Welcome. Oh, well, thank you. What I'm learning is I'm not for the masses. So I think I'm going to have a very niche following, but I think it's quality over quantity too. I think that the people that do find something useful, I think are going to be kind of an exceptional crowd. And wait, what happened, freak? That's so funny because he even let me in as long as I don't talk to Lib. Try not to talk to Lib. I can talk to Lib, but I can't communicate with Lib from inside of Conservatoria. I have to go outside, and I can't have Lib over to my house. I have to go visit him outside of Conservatoria. So that doesn't sound very free to me. I have more freedoms in the U.S. right now than I would have if I did his little libertarian utopia. But I can't believe he told you no. Well, he did his funeral, and I haven't seen him since, so maybe he really is gone. Let me check his channel. We're talking about iFi, for those that don't know him. I'm kind of his panel daddy, actually. He started showing up on my streams, promoting his stuff before he drifted on to all the other ones. iFi and Hank, and a little bit Lib, and a Chris, I guess. I'm kind of their panel daddies. So long, humans, and thanks for all the fish. Nope, not a peep out of him since. He'll be back. Oh Lord, that's that's setting yourself up for a lot there. Yeah, that is true. That is the one thing I've always been good at, is holding space for a certain type of person. That was very important in my generation for gay rights. The most important thing you could do, I was like, I don't know, late teens, early 20s. The single most important thing you could do as a gay person back then was just be visible. Just come out and show people that because we needed the number. We needed as many people to see gay people as possible, and the range of gay people, and that we weren't all just one way. And so I did my part by coming out and being unapologetically gay. Like I planted my flag there, and it doesn't move at that point. It's kind of hard to go back in. And I've been able to do that ever since, with like every identity after that, whether it's Satanism, autism, mental health, male, whatever identity has, I can plant a flag for it. It's like my pentagram. I can draw my pentagram and create a space where that identity can exist. I will hold up that tent pole for that identity as long as I have to. And I've done it for many identities before. iFi said he will come back now and then. That's fine. I wish he'd come do one on here, especially because he sounds like more of a Platonist, and I'm more of an Aristotelian, although he does have a strong Aristotelian side to him as well, but none of it sounds really like Christian theology. It sounds like Greek virtue ethics and moral philosophy, Socratic and Platonic moral philosophy. Yeah, I have to say, iFi is one of the people I really do enjoy talking philosophy with, because he has an actual background with it, and he knows the philosophy, and he knows logic, and he can follow this stuff, and that's always a great pleasure. And he does that part of it better than even Andrew Wilson, because he put several very sensible questions to Andrew one day on a stream about logic, and Andrew kept dodging and evading and never would answer. And I-Fi kept holding his feet to those questions, which are the same exact questions I would have asked. Let me put his channel. I think it's just called I-Fi. I-Fi YT YouTube. Here it is. So I-Fi, yeah, if you're out there, you always have a rocking chair on this porch. Or until I decide that you don't. But that would also be determined by you. So there's I-Fi. Check him out. Church of Christ. Is that the Mormons? There's so many churches of Christ. How does he keep up with all his churches? Especially which one's first and second. And I hope he's a numbers guy. Like every town, how many First Baptist churches does a town get to have? Even our little town, our town growing up had about 300 people. And even in that little town, they had a Catholic church. They had a Black Catholic church. They had another smaller Catholic church on the edge of town that nobody really went to except for a few old people. They had a Baptist church for the white people, and they had a Black Baptist church. So that was at least 5 churches in that town of 300 people. Churches of Christ. Let's see. It's a specific thing. Church. Oh, it sure is. Churches of Christ, commonly known as the Church of Christ. A loose association of autonomous Christian congregations located around the world. Necessity of baptism for salvation. The prohibition against musical instruments in worship. What kind of heathens are these people? No music to work. Music. Oh, fuck. I can't relate to that at all. I didn't know I-Fi was like this. They can't use music in their worship. How do they worship? Even the Pentecostals use music. I think they are complementary or antithetical parts of a larger whole. Like there's an archetype. You can use, in Jungian terms, the archetype of the self. You have the male, female, the shadow, and the self is kind of that centralizing archetype. That's where Jung puts Christ, the figure of Christ, or the Christ, or Christ consciousness. I think you could substitute Satan in that same spot and have the Satan or a satanic consciousness. And I think you could use either one depending on your needs, or both. Or there's some transcendent archetype that unites them. So yes, I think that I consider my Satanism a Christian Satanism. It's complementary to the Christian mythos, and it emerges from the Christian mythos. And it's a Protestant Satanism. It's not even a Catholic one. What kind of music do you like? Sometimes I hang out in Discord and listen to music. I'm looking for good music too, because I tend to listen. I have my artists I grew up with, and I just listen to all the new stuff they put out, but from the same people. It's hard finding new artists because your ear becomes attuned to, or at least mine does. Yeah, I don't think Satan has the same theological or ontological status as somebody like Yahweh or Christ. I mean, to me, if Satan exists at all, he was created by the same creator that created everything else. I definitely don't want to end up in heaven. I think I would be very bored. There'd be the positive maladjustment would be more intense than any I've ever experienced in my entire life. Especially if it's the heaven with no music. I would at least want some harps, but even that, who wants to listen to harps all day long? I want to go where the electric guitar is, and the drums, and the bass, and the feedback, and the amps, and all that stuff. So I have a feeling that's going to be in hell. So that's where I'm setting my compass for. I like Jesus. I very much resonate. I don't have a problem with Jesus. I don't know a lot about him. We tried to do a conversation with AI Jesus one day on the stream, and I couldn't understand him. He kept talking in parables, like the dove is gonna do something with the leaf and the wing, and the waters will open, and your mind will be illuminated. It was AI Jesus and Socrates and Carl Jung and me and Chris, and I understood Socrates the most and Carl Jung because they were explaining it in like rational terms, and Jesus was not. He was using poetic terms, and so I don't have a problem with him. I just don't understand what he's saying all the time. I used to work in an inpatient ward, and I love listening to the patients talk and tell their realities. And I mean, I literally did that all day, and I'd get in big, deep conversations with them. And like a staff would tap me on the shoulder, and they'd be like, "You know that person's psychotic, right?" And I'd be like, "Yes, yeah, but I mean, they make sense. Their story, it has an internal consistency to it that even if it's not reality, it's interesting and fascinating to listen to." That's kind of how I felt with Jesus. Like he was giving me his reality on his terms, and it was interesting to listen to, but I didn't understand much of it. Neutral, conservative, Protestant. Yeah, I'm kind of like the tradcon Satanist. I did that episode last night on Anton LaVey was describing Satanism as Americanism, but the Americanism he was describing sounded a lot like conservatism. And I'm thinking, wow, Satanism, even back then, by the founder, sounds way more conservative than it does left wing. Oh, I see. That's your religion? Yeah, he could be. I could easily see Jesus. Or just like gender, agender, or he seemed like he just transcended gender. He was probably a spur too. All right. Well, I guess that's it for today. I don't know if I have any more to say. Thanks for hanging out. I enjoyed my coffee with you. I'll probably be on sometime later today, and there's other panels going on. Let me see if I have one I can direct you to now. Dave Rubin is live if you're into him. Or Rachel's Ghost. Here, I'll put Rachel's channel. Rachel's doing a panel. There you go. All right. Well, I'll see you next time, later today or sometime tomorrow. It's fun hanging out. Oh, hey, yeah, well, I was just wrapping up. Nobody showed up for panel today, so it's been an hour and 20 minutes, if you can believe that. So yeah, good to see you. Catch up if you want. I don't know that I said too much. I'm wrapping up, Brandon. I'm wrapping up today, so take care. Take care, Neutral Ground. Good to see you, everyone. Keep being cool, or stay cool.